just in case.
All right, welcome everyone. This is Kristen Vincent, Chair of the Westborough School Committee. Today is Wednesday, June 9th, 2021. The meeting of the Westborough School Committee is called to order. Please stand if you are able for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for joining us this evening. As you notice, we're not wearing masks tonight because, according to Governor Baker, they are not required unless you are a school, a medical facility, or riding on mass transportation. And social distancing is also not required, so we don't have to spread out quite as much as we were before. But anyone attending the school committee meeting who wants to wear a mask can. Anyone is welcome to do so. People who are unvaccinated are advised to wear a mask. I'd like to notify everyone with us tonight that this meeting is being recorded by Westborough TV. School committee meetings are available for remote viewing or listening on Westborough TV's government channels, Verizon 28 and Charter 192, and online on the Westborough TV YouTube channel. A recording of this meeting will be posted on the Westborough TV YouTube channel. And thank you to Westborough TV for covering the broadcast tonight and for accommodating all of our meetings this school year, virtually and in person, and we're so grateful for everything that Westborough TV does for our schools. We have with us tonight Superintendent Amber Bach. The Assistant Superintendent cannot be here tonight. He's at his daughter's high school graduation. We have Director of Finance and Administration Irene Oliver, Vice Chair of the Westborough School Committee Steve Durrett, School Committee members Sarah Dulay, Lisa Edinburgh, and Raghu Nandan. We have our new student representative here for next year, Andrew Chen, our recording secretary, Jen Benton, and staff from Westborough TV handling the broadcast and recording of this meeting. And our agenda for the meeting is as follows. We will have approval of minutes from May 26, 2021 regular session. We'll have the superintendent's report and reports from Director of Finance and Administration. We'll have school committee member reports, building project updates, citizens' requests, COVID-19 impact update, which will probably be the last time we have that on the agenda, which is a good thing, I think. We will vote to approve student handbooks for the 2021-2022 school year. We will vote to approve the stipend list for the 2021-2022 school year. We'll have the fourth quarterly update from the Assabet Valley Cooperative, and we'll have the superintendent's evaluation. So we will begin with approval of minutes, approving the minutes from May 26, 2021 regular session. And I just want to say before we approve the minutes, thanks to Jen for all her work in preparing the minutes. We really appreciate it. You do a great job. Thanks, Jen.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the amended minutes for May 26th regular session.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion?
Just one from me. Under student handbooks review, under Ms. Vincent's report, rather than the religious homework policy has been updated, it should say the homework policy for religious holidays has been updated.
Any other discussion? All right, all in favor? We can just raise our hands if you want to approve them this time. All right, so that's 5 in favor. Thank you. So I'm going to turn it over to the superintendent.
Thank you very much. It's good to see all of you for your final formal school committee meeting of the 2021 school year. I am very pleased to welcome Andrew Chen, who has been selected by peers and colleagues at the high school and administration to serve as your next high school student representative for the 21-22 school year. He is a junior, well, officially in about 8 days, a rising senior, of course, and we're very pleased to have him serving with us. And I would turn it over, and if, Andrew, you want to say anything, you can.
Yeah, so hi, everyone. My name is Andrew Chen. Just a brief introduction about myself. I'm also the class vice president for the class of 2022, and I'm the newly elected president of NHS at Westborough High School. So yeah, I also like to play tennis. So
Nice. We like our well-rounded students. So you're already off to a good start.
Thank you.
We'll have opportunities to orient you and get you settled tonight. We really want a chance to formally introduce you and welcome you. And you'll get a feel tonight for the meetings, and then we'll get you geared up and ready to go for the year. I also want to acknowledge that tonight is Irene Oliver's final school committee meeting of her career in Westborough. And I want to thank her for her service. We've worked together closely for 7 years, and I know it's a big change for you. And I certainly know it will feel very different not having you as the person crushing the numbers. So I want to thank you for our time, and I know other people will have comments later, but I think it's a really important acknowledgement tonight. I also want to celebrate that the graduation this past weekend was really lovely. It felt so normal. It was a typical evening. We had full attendance, and the ceremony was run as we always have in the past with no modifications, which was fabulous. I think all of the graduates and family members enjoyed that. The night before, we had the baccalaureate and the memory lane walk, the parade. Everything was just a really nice opportunity of benchmarks for families, and it was really lovely. I just have to comment that I think this graduating class was really such an enjoyable and caring group, and one that we all enjoyed as they progressed through high school and in their years before. And I think they really withstood and responded to a very tough experience with grace and an amazing amount of fortitude. And I am just very impressed by the quality of school experiences and work experiences and post-grad work that they are heading off to. They have placed into some very prestigious organizations, and we're immensely proud. They make us look really good. Their work and the support they've had from their families over the years has set them up for a lot of success. I'm very, very pleased that I think they're all going to be able to go off to their next ventures in the fall and experience fairly typical openings to the college settings and work settings that they're heading to. So at long last, I think they'll see some return towards normalcy. I also want to indicate it's been very hot. And despite that, we've had field days underway and special occasions at the elementary schools. I just want to give a shout out to the faculty who have a very nice way of managing what can feel like very oppressive heat when it's hot in the buildings. And they have routines where they share air-conditioned spaces, they take outdoor breaks. I just think that they do it with such grace, and they make the day really manageable for our students, and while busy teaching. And I just want to really recognize that. And they felt strongly about maintaining normalcy as we push through to the close of the year. So I really want to commend them for that. And we have, only a few days left. So 7 days as of today, and we look forward to a series of nice celebratory closes. And that's my report for tonight.
Thank you. Irene, do you have anything to share tonight?
Yes, I have one update, and that has to do with the food service contract, the management of the food service with Chartwells. Last year, we awarded the contract, a 5-year contract to Chartwells. This would be, this year coming up for fiscal year '22 will be the first amendment to that contract, year 2. And I just want to mention that it's 3% increase to the management fee and to their administrative fee, which is reasonable. The management fee is $39.43 a month, and the administrative fee is $272.60 a month. So it seems reasonable to me. The chair has signed it, but if there's any discussion in that regard, it certainly can be retracted. It went out for a bid, and so it was a formal bid, and they were awarded the least financial to the district and most responsible bidder. And that's my update for tonight.
Thank you. But before we turn our attention away, this is our last official meeting with you as in the position of Director of Finance and Administration. So we just want to thank you for all your years of work and service in the Westborough Public Schools, and we will certainly miss you, and we have a little something for you.
Yes, we can't let you leave without something sweet.
Oh, no.
Irene, this gift is so you.
Oh, my goodness. Thank you. Oh, my goodness. Look at that.
It's from the Sugar Shack.
I love it.
Keep you busy for a while.
Oh, my goodness. I was going to be here longer. I'd have it right in my office.
But you have to put a lock on it.
You can take your time.
Oh, I love it. Thank you so much, everyone. I just, I hope I don't start getting choked up and crying. I have a difficult time with closure. So, and this has been my career. And as I've told you before, I reached the maximum of my pension and plus 2% on top of that, and years of 38 years, and then 11 years here in Westborough. If 11 years gives you any indication of my love for Westborough, I hope you understand that. Typically, business managers will bounce around from district to district after it's anywhere between 3 and 5 years, and and that hasn't happened, and that's due to everyone that I've worked with, and especially you, and it's been a pleasure. And some school committee members of my colleagues have some stories that make me wonder, and I've never had that experience here, so I've been blessed. And superintendent, assistant superintendent, all of my colleagues that I've worked with have been tremendous, and I'm really going to miss all of you. And I'm still around, so if there's ever a need, I'm always accessible, so I'm always here. I hope that we will have a chance encounter after August 31st when I retire. Thank you so much. This was so nice. I appreciate it.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And we know you're still around because you're here this summer, so thank you.
I'll proudly display this right now.
Stay out of that for the meeting.
So we will move into our school committee member reports. So Andrew, just to let you know, this would be a time where each of us have a chance to share something, like from a committee that we're working on, an event that we attended, something we want the community to know about. And so your role will be sharing things going on in the schools. So Superintendent Bach will set you up with a process of contacting principals, and they will share with you events that they have going on that you can share out to the whole community. And of course, we always look for your input on things happening at the high school too. So This will be your chance to do that when we start back in August. Great. So I'm going to move on to Sarah. What do you have to
Yes,
share?
thank you. I just wanted to mention Project Graduation, which, just a little background, in a regular year is an event that's held at Teamworks for the senior class on graduation night, where they can gather and stay for the night and celebrate their graduation in a chemical-free environment with planned activities, games, lots of food, usually donated by local restaurants. And Westborough's tradition is to have a secret theme with elaborate decorations, which makes the night even more fun. And hopefully next year we'll be able to do that again for the class of 2022. But the last 2 years, since the overnight event couldn't happen, the small but mighty board of Project Graduation has worked hard to bring that feel outside to the Westborough High School field. It's a dedicated group. There are current school parents paying it forward. There are former school parents paying it backward. There were graduates, alumni there helping out. So it's, and even town residents sharing their talents. So it was great. Cannot thank them enough for the care they took to really make the field a truly special place for graduation weekend. They spent countless hours planning, decorating, watching out for the rain. It did end up raining. Covered things, uncovered things. Anyway, it was an amazing feat to watch. And then there was a separate same group, but separate, that did the memory lane posters, and they really did a great job of making sure that everyone that wanted a poster had a poster. They hung up a few last minute ones that rolled in as people were walking down. Just a really great group that put on a special night at baccalaureate, after the baccalaureate, and I know that senior families were raving about the event. So thank you to all of them. I want to add one other quick thing that I discovered this afternoon. Armstrong Parent Group is holding an end-of-school bike block party this Saturday in their parking lot from 3 to 5, and it fits in perfectly with the, some of the work we've done with Safe Routes to School. So if anyone, they have a sign up, they kind of wanted to know who was coming, but if you go to, I think, Armstrong Parent Group on Facebook or check with the Armstrong Parent Group, you can sign up and ride your bike around the parking lot in the afternoon. I believe the ice, not the ice cream, the Kona ice truck is coming too, so. Thank you for putting that on for us.
Raghu, do you have anything?
Thank you, Irene, for all your service, and especially last year when you pulled us through the tough times, and wish you all the best other than that.
Thank you. Thanks. Lisa?
I have a few things. Irene, I wish you well. It's been a pleasure working with you. I can't believe you're going. I guess I'm not so good with closure either. I'm just going to be okay. But thank you for your service here. I appreciate it. Wanted to mention that I didn't mention last time is that the bus app, originally we've talked about Here Comes the Bus, but that is no longer going to be even the option for NRT next year. They've been doing some piloting in Haverhill and Gardner, and it sounds as if there is going to be an app next year, but it will not be that one. So there's promise, is what
That's
I've been
good.
told.
That's really good.
But it won't be the first day of school. I've actually advised them not to
Yeah.
test it on the first day of school. So, but as we get into the year, at least that probably will come up.
Great.
I also wanted to thank, there was a 6-week parent series for social emotional learning, and it was for parents over a 6-week, every Tuesday night from 7 to 8. I wanted to thank Kim Tynan, Roger Anderson, and Kim Cusiak, who did a really fabulous job running this series for parents. It was really, it was just eye-opening to know what is social emotional learning, how can you apply it to your own lives, how can you apply it to your children's lives, how other people view it, and how it's being implemented into the school, into the Westborough Public Schools. Graduation, my goodness, having been a recipient of that extraordinary experience, having my own daughter graduate this past Saturday, I want to thank everyone from Brian Callahan to all the people. I mean, Sarah's description of the event of the senior stroll and the decorations it really was a meaningful, extraordinary experience to walk around that track and reflect by looking at the collages of each student, and also meeting up with parents and students who you've known over the last 13 years was really quite a moving moment. I'm going to try not to think about it right now. The senior parade was really extraordinary on Saturday morning. I just think that when your child is riding in a car to say, here I am, I'm a senior, and people along the sides, people from the community came out to cheer them on, to make them just feel special, even for the students who look like they may be uncomfortable with that process, had this sudden smile on their face like, yeah, I am graduating and here I am, and it was really great to see the community come out and support them. And then there were many other events. Adopt a Senior, Mr. WHS, who created a fundraiser. They raised over $12,000 for the food pantry. They were just really a wonderful send-off for the seniors. I also, finally, I've been reflecting back on this year, since this is our last meeting. And of course, the date that sticks out in my mind is August 17th. August 17th was a very emotional moment for the school committee at our meeting, where we reviewed how we were going to open for September of 2020. And when I think back on that period of time where we worked much of the summer collaborating with Labor Management Board and each other and administration, I think to myself, I'm not sure we knew how we would get through this year, but on August 17th, we made a commitment to work together, to come together. And although we've had our ups and downs, and we have gotten through some very challenging times, we made it through. And I just want to pause and reflect that collaboration, teamwork, coming together as a community and as school families really paid, the outcome was so extraordinary to get through a very challenging year, like none other. And I'm sure we'll review it as we're going through the evaluation, but I just think you have to pause and say, wow, August 17th was a turning point where a decision was made, we moved forward, we hit some bumps in the road, we thrived in other areas, and I think back and think we did the best we could do with what we knew at the time, and I'm really proud of this team. I couldn't imagine going through it without any of you. I mean, it had to have been this group, these people. And for anyone who's out there who said you knew what it would be like for it to be us, no. No one could really experience it unless you were in it. And I also wanted to mention how much I appreciate the support of people who came up to me over the past year, letting me know they recognized how hard it was and recognized that we were doing the best we could. And sometimes they supported us and sometimes they didn't. And I really respected their feedback. And for those who felt another way, where they were just feeling angry, I received your feedback as well, and I appreciated it, because I know that for each of us individually, we were experiencing our own moment along the way with our own kids and their heartaches and their losses, and I appreciate you too. So I hope that we can move forward from this point, and I just wanted to just have a moment where we pause, just pause. So thank you.
Thank you.
Good job.
Steve?
Yeah, I got a couple in this section of the agenda. One of the things that we didn't get this year, and we've got plenty of other things, but I would like to make a request for a list of the schools that this class of 2021 was accepted to. I've had a few people ask me about that since we haven't had that opportunity to discuss it, mainly because I think it's an indicator of a follow-up on what Lisa just said, which is our students, based on their own efforts to achieve, even in the middle of the pandemic, is representative of the town, of the school committee, of the school district, of the teachers, of the principals, and their interest and effort to learn. And so I would like to see the list, because I think it'll be vindication of how much was done by the community, for the community, and by the students themselves. The second comment I'd like to make for those who may have watched the Conservation Commission meeting last night, which dealt with issues associated with runoff at the Field School construction. One of the things that you'll see in that discussion are some of the photographs of the downhill area, which most people have never seen, at least those of, let's say, 30, 40 years and older. It's my understanding that students who were in Fales earlier than that actually did have an opportunity to view the hillside, probably as it was changing from grass to trees and trees to a jungle, and the pond that's at the bottom. So my request now is tied to the fact that I think we, as the school committee, and I would make this recommendation, that the school committee consider creating a request for proposal to improve the hillside, which is downhill of the current work, and include in that proposal a request for an aquatic biologist to study the current condition of the pond, with a recommendation to make suggest whatever improvements we could make in that area, so that ultimately that natural resource could be included as part of the teaching curriculum at Fales from a biological point of view. We on the building committee have struggled to try to protect that resource, and as part of the project funds, which we had no idea we were going to have to expend them for this purpose, but We have expended a fair amount of money, project money, to condition the runoff from the soil that was disturbed as a result of construction. It is some of the most difficult soils to manage in terms of erosion, sedimentation, et cetera. And, you know, I made a statement at the end of our presentation to the Conservation Commission last night that we are the town, whether it was school committee, Conservation Commission, or any other town board or group, that in fact it's our interest to protect our resources, and that it would be my word as well as the word of the building committee that in fact we have and continue to protect that resource, and that I would make this recommendation tonight so that we can improve it and use it, as did much earlier classes at Fales. And I think that was generally accepted. After an hour and a half's discussion, I think there was an acknowledgement by the Conservation Commission that not only have we done a good job in regards to containing the, if you will, the dirty runoff from the site, but that the improvements that we have made continually as we have learned how to protect that resource is certainly in view in many of the slides. I guess to step into the building story now, if you wish, or would you like to finish this part?
I just have one thing to say about graduation.
Yeah,
so
okay.
If you don't mind, is that okay?
No, go ahead.
Yeah, so for my report, I just want to say that I thought graduation on Saturday was really wonderful. It was just nice to see everyone gathered together in one space with no restrictions. So I just wanted to say congratulations again to all of our graduates and their families, and just send a big thank you to all of our teachers and school staff and administrators who helped each one of those students achieve their high school graduation, because it's not just staff from the high school, but it's from kindergarten, it's from preschool on. It's every teacher and every member of our school community that a student has had contact with that leads to that milestone. So I just want to thank our whole school community for coming together for every single one of those students to make sure that they can make it and be there and graduate. And after this year, everyone deserves a great big thank you. So that's what I wanted to share. So I'll turn it back over to you, Steve, for some building project updates.
Thank you. One of the things you'll see in the slide, and those slides that I mentioned that were presented to the Conservation Commission, there's actually two pieces of the site in terms of the erosion control. There are two sedimentation ponds that are, they look pretty ugly, but the purpose of them was to contain the runoff from the upper part of the site. That dirty water gets pumped into two frac tanks, which you'll also see. And if you follow along with the slide presentation, you'll see the discharge from that changes from really dirty, almost chocolate-colored water to clear water that's discharged down the hill. The second part is at the old parking lot, which will eventually be subsumed, if you will, into the new parking area at the school, which when it finally, when the drainage system is completed, most of the water that's coming out of that system will end up being treated and discharged into underground infiltration basins. So ultimately, we're in a stage right now where we're close, but we're not done with the site. And one of the things to point out, I guess, in terms of progress, is that the geothermal wells are completed. They're now doing the piping in what is the area where the, quote, dirty water is. And when that piping gets completed, it'll get backfilled, and then we can start the final grading for what will be the future field. And I guess to that end, many things are going on inside the building where finishes are being put in place. And, you know, it's really not that far away to the fall season when the building can be occupied. One of the things you'll see on the outside is that the contractors are now installing the fastenings for the solar panels, and pretty soon solar panels will arrive within a week or two, and you'll begin to see the erection of the solar panels on the roof. The permanent electrical supply to the building is now complete, and we are being fed by National Grid through the new transformer and cables that go into the new building. And the point that I'm making is that as soon as we're able and begin to install the solar panels and test them and make them operational, we will be generating our own energy in that system even before we occupy the building. So things are looking up and it's moving along. And I guess just the final statement is, at the last few meetings, I mentioned the fact that in order to save money, that there wasn't a real purpose in having building occupancy in early October versus saving $150,000 to $200,000 in forced overtime to make an earlier date that really had no meaning. So based on the building committee's authorization and with the additional supporting information that I received on behalf of the committee, I made the decision that we would extend the quote completion date of the school to approximately, Veterans Day weekend, when we hope that all things will be done and that we can, in that period of time, move into the new school. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Steve?
I have a question. The runoff into the pond, is it solely due to construction activities and at this point, or?
Well, yeah, I mean, the focus has been on the construction activities, but if you wish, you can certainly walk to the pond and have a look. One of the reasons for my suggestion of the study is that, over the years, it's been neglected. There's a lot of dead limbs, dead trees, all kinds of other junk that's in that pond that is not the responsibility of the construction people, but certainly is something that we should clean up and remove. And the reason for the aquatic biologist is to be able to get a plan and do it right so that it's a useful resource in the future.
So was the request for proposal from the Conservation Commission?
No,
No.
it's from me,
It's from
to you,
To us?
to us.
That's what
Yeah,
so is that an agenda item we should be putting on?
in the future,
in the
yes.
future? Okay,
Yeah.
I wanted to understand.
Yeah, in the meantime, I'll do a little research and see who we, might wish to discuss that concept with, if it is the interest of the committee to move forward with that concept.
So it's to study the status.
Yeah, but more particularly to give us recommendations as to how to do it, because there's many ways you could do it. You could go in there with a bulldozer and clean it up, or you could use, intelligence, I guess, to do it, which is what I'm suggesting.
Might there be any grant money
Could be.
using, they're not called the Green Committee, but I call them the Green Committee, the
Westborough, Sustainable Westborough.
Sustainable Westborough.
Yeah, different, probably.
Yep, and I'm sure
there are
there's-
definite avenues. I mean, their branch is a little different, but they're probably through conservation work, you can do stuff, open space. So Steve and I can talk more about this. I mean, there's avenues, you can do college work, you can work with a local college. There are departments where there might be a student who wants to do a study and coordinate with the high school. We also have talented people
Yeah,
at
it
the
could
high
be a
school.
thesis.
So there's a range of options. So I think Steve and I can discuss it more against the range of work he's visioning and what the options might be. And then I'll do a little research and put together a proposal that we could bring back to you, which I would imagine we could target sometime after we get into the building. I mean, it's not going to be feasible until we get really the completion of project. So we've got some time to work on it. But
Yeah, and my thought is, once we have, let's say, the instructions as to how to do it, that we might budget, say over a 5-year period to make
Yeah.
these improvements. I think it's more of the school committee's acknowledgement that it's time that we took care of that, and not to burden us with the instantaneous cost of this upgrade, but to have a program by which we can achieve that goal.
Okay, I have it on my work list. You're coming up with a lot of lists tonight, but it's okay, I'm just writing them down. All right, that one's a good one.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you. So next on our agenda is citizens' requests, but I don't see any citizens here making a request tonight. So we will move on to our next agenda item, which is COVID-19 impact updates.
Thank you, that comes my way. So we are in a place of beginning to wind down the range of recommendations, and to Lisa's point and the comments she made very eloquently, you look at the length of updates and the amount of push communication that it took for us to keep people, somewhat on the same page with where we were and what was happening, and it's beginning to quiet and begin to close down. We don't have, the rate, I think currently Westborough is at 83% vaccination rate. We effectively have reached herd immunity in Westborough. But, we look to that progress, and it is staggering and such positive good news. So the good news is that we are winding down, and with the end of this meeting, it is kind of a milestone to be able to close out that report in terms of it needing to be a separate and official weekly kind of update. One area that remained for discussion that's been active in the past 2 weeks, basically since the governor's announcement on May 29th, we're looking at the confusion around aspects of the travel quarantine guidelines, and we've taken some emails that week on this. So I just want to provide an update. I spoke to Dr. Ehrlich, chair of the Board of Health, about a half an hour before this meeting, and I have comments that he shared with me that I want to follow up on. But what we had effectively done was do some research a little bit on Friday, and then Monday and Tuesday finalized an update with Dr. Ehrlich on what the current status of the practice is for quarantining. And I was prepping a memo, and I was going to update you here and then put out a memo tomorrow just for parents who had questions. So I spoke with Dr. Ehrlich about half an hour ago, and he called to indicate that it looks like the state might have updated their website again since we spoke end of day Monday and Tuesday. So he would like an opportunity to convene tomorrow with me. He's going to put in another call to the Department of Public Health. So he had spoken directly to the Department of Public Health on Monday, and then he and I spoke Tuesday morning. And at that time, they were clear that they were maintaining the quarantining and testing guidelines through the close of the year. They were kind of like as a standing practice. So I was prepping a communication that shared that and emailed a couple of parents today to indicate that, we were going to maintain the status quo through the close of the year. That echoes what other districts have been doing as well. So that was going to be my most current update, which was also acknowledging that it's frustrating that it feels in confusion to the status of where we are with our health and wellness and with our own herd immunity here and all of those pieces. So I thought it was immensely kind of Dr. Ehrlich to ring me up about half an hour ago and indicate that what he would prefer to do is reconvene tomorrow. He'll put in a call to the Board of Health. He already had. And so we will provide an update that I will then push out as soon as I get the most current Board of Health guidance with confirmation of what DPH is saying.
Sorry, does that include the travel?
That's exactly what it's about.
Because you had mentioned quarantining.
Well, quarantining and traveling, because right now quarantining is related to traveling. So
then the testing
the
on the-
travel
on the
and test
traveling.
quarantine is where people were asking us questions. Thank you for the clarification. So currently, there's if you travel outside of Massachusetts for under 24 hours, you don't need to test and quarantine. If you're fully vaccinated, you don't need to test and quarantine. But we have a range of students from 10 and up through anybody non-vaccinated who then are kind of in that cohort. Students below 10 follow their family guideline, which again is kind of a confusing benchmark, doesn't really have a data standard. So I understand why it's frustrating to parents, and you certainly do as well, I'm sure. And it's frustrating to us. So, we're trying to implement a parameter that feels a little irrational, but we also are confined to some of those benchmarks of compliance. based upon what the Board of Health tells us. So we can do we can do more than the state, we can't do less than. So the guidance of the Department of Public Health and the vote of the Board of Health, we cannot go less than that benchmark. We can always go more. We've been running at that amount, like whatever they recommend. So currently, the travel guideline is up in the air in terms of needing to be updated. And one of the parent emails I saw, was saying, well, this has relevance also for us to think about with regard to summer camp. It's not like it goes away permanently because there's a range of other school experiences that do continue, which we also recognize. So I will get the most current update tomorrow, hopefully, and then be able to push that out to the community, hopefully before Friday, because it rolls up on the weekend when a lot of people are on travel teams, they want to go to weekend houses, that type of thing.
But I have one other, sorry. I said one other, I guess it's a question for Dr. Ehrlich, because I don't really get it either, but, or maybe for the higher powers. Like, if they say you can get a test like 72 hours before you return, if you're literally going away for a weekend, if you get a test on Friday, how does that indicative of any activity you did over the weekend? I don't know. So
Well,
that confuses me
hence
too.
the
So-
irrational component of it. I mean, I've listened to this and we're all living in this particular set of parameters, and we all wish to travel as well. So we all understand that. Because for many of us, though, it's also then with such a high vaccination rate in town, it's very frustrating for families when 3/4 of your family is vaccinated, and then you have a straggler, like a 9-year-old that you have to think about differently, and that can be, or in this case, a 10-year-old. And so I just want to acknowledge, like, we fully understand, the nurses fully understand. It's frustrating when we're trapped in an area of confusion as well. I'm considering it good news that Dr. Ehrlich called me half an hour ago and said that he thought they had updated it, because the update I got from him Tuesday was that we would be status quo through the close, which is what DPH had said and what Board of Health felt was appropriate. So he's going to review it, and if there's a flexibility or a change in practice, we would certainly welcome that, and again, would welcome following that guideline. So I remain hopeful that by tomorrow I'll have an update that's very, more in line. I just also want to acknowledge and be respectful of the fact that all of these boards are moving as quickly as they can as well. They're hardworking, they've done very good work, and I think there's gaps, and the schools and different cohorts can be gaps. And I think there's a gap in how their current practices aren't lining up. And I do think they've obviously, I would imagine, received even more feedback than we have. And I think they've taken under advisement, and hopefully we'll see a better alignment tomorrow. So.
And we're not doing anything that another school system would be doing. Other school systems have summer programs this will pertain to them as well.
Right, everybody has the same vested interest. I mean, our head nurse put out calls to the schools around us to see what they were doing, and again, following the same guidelines, because they're bound by the same two boards. So in some cases, they might have a Board of Health who would choose to act differently, but most of them haven't. They've all been clear that they were going to remain status quo through the close of the year until the guidelines got updated.
And in the past, when it hasn't made sense, when there's something in opposition to one another, the state has changed their words. And it's the same thing. It reminds me of the teachers must be masked, but everyone else can be unmasked outside, but not a teacher. So that changed very quickly because school systems said, that doesn't make sense. I suspect this is in the same.
I hope so. I mean, I think
so.
the other thing is that the low-risk states around us are also at a high rate of success overall, and so most of the travel circle for weekends is, into states where I believe they feel that it's still fairly highly vaccinated. So let's keep our fingers crossed. That's the only particular practice that seems to be up for question right now. It looks like the indoor mask guideline is going to remain in place, I anticipate, through summer. We might see an update. We're all, I think, hopeful that the fall update would allow us to return to teaching without masks. I think, again, more to come in the future. All right?
So if hopefully they change their policy at the DPH level, if they change the policy and they say, okay, we have herd immunity, no more testing or quarantining, if they do that, is there a mechanism for that information to flow through to the Board of Health and to the school?
Yeah, yes, exactly.
Back to the
It'll
parents.
flow to the Board of Health because Dr. Ehrlich has a call into them. He'll get clarification. They'll take action to be in compliance with where the state is. He and I will meet tomorrow with
No, not now, is not on.
In the summer.
Say in the summer. 2 weeks
Oh,
in the summer,
yeah.
3 weeks in
No,
the summer.
sorry,
they
sorry.
change their- they
Yeah, I
change
mean,
their
I
position.
think we're all going to be looking at track, I mean, I'm here all summer, so I mean, we work through the summer, we are not going to be off. Schools are closed, but admin works all summer, and one of the things we'll be doing is tracking the current status of what the opening parameters are going to look like. I would imagine that the weekly meetings and the types of meetings we've had with DESE and all that are all going to have to be sustained through the summer. So we'll be tracking that and getting updates. I mean, the superintendents are pressing on all questions around opening, and so there will be a series of updates, I imagine. And those will then be shared to the community, and the Board of Health also regularly gets those updates. They have, I think, weekly meetings with the Department of Public Health and doing announcements. So, as do the nurses. So there's a range of kind of tiers of feedback, yeah.
I'm sure if the Board of Health gets where I could see potentially a breakdown is DPH decides that it's no longer needed, and then nobody at the Board of Health knows, and nobody at the school knows, so we are keeping so that's what I was wondering about.
Yeah,
If the
yeah.
Board of Health comes to know, I'm sure they will communicate that to us, or you, and you could pass that on to the parents.
Yeah, no, I think, I have to just give a shout out to our Board of Health. I mean, there were many boards of health that collapsed under the inability to
Yeah.
manage what this required. And not only did we do that, but we then called to do our own vaccination clinic with the leadership of the fire department and our Board of Health. And I think that they've done, incredible work. And then they also had a leadership transition because Steve Bakari left. So I just have to say praise to them for really being collaborative. I mean, whenever I call them, they get right back to me. And Dr. Ehrlich is amazing, so. So more on that later. We're all hopeful for good news, and then I can put together an update. Any other questions on that, though? Yeah, let's hope. Let's be hopeful.
Sounds like you have a memo ready to go. You just
I
need to
do.
get
I had
the
one written.
information.
I actually tested it out on a parent. I'm like, here's what I'll be saying.
Would you be able to add that line that if, in case it changes policy at the state level, then we'll communicate back to you. We'll change our policy accordingly and communicate back to you.
Yeah, definitely. We will. I mean,
That will give
you mean
parents
throughout
some
the
hope.
span of the summer?
Like in
Yeah,
anticipation
yeah,
of the
In
summer.
anticipation of the summer.
Yeah, I mean, most typically, the only thing that will impact families as they head off after the close, if they have children in summer programming with us, and trust me, those people will be watching every day for those changes.
Yeah, that, as a parent, if I had a 10-year-old, I don't have that issue right now. But if I had a 10-year-old, I'd call my senator, I would call my state rep and say,
Okay.
hey, change this.
Yeah, yeah,
That could happen.
yeah.
So if you could, because at a very high level, that policy doesn't make sense,
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, So at this point,
Yeah.
if you add that, it could trigger some reaction from the
Yeah.
parents themselves
Yeah.
to put some pressure.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, again, we've tried to rely on them to look at the science, to understand where things are, and to give us their best guidance. So, definitely. So that's my update for where we are with COVID updates. We've had no new cases. Student procedures have been fabulous. It's been hot, and everyone's still been very, very good. So things are going well.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So next on our agenda is vote to approve student handbooks for the 2021-2022 school year. And I know since our last school committee meeting, the high school did add some updates to the dress code because Lisa had brought up something about head coverings and the word do-rag. And I know Brian had done some work with some
So
students.
they
and
had
faculty.
completed it. They just were waiting to announce it with a variety of other updates. But it was, because it was asked about, we went ahead and rolled it in now. I think the language is there for your review. I think it looks good. It was done in collaboration with students.
And I think all the religious holiday homework policies have been added to
Yeah.
all the handbooks as well. So those different tiers and the explanation of that is now a part of all
Yeah.
of them, so.
And they will get, just before you vote, I want to be clear, you know, they work on them through the summer because there's staffing changes still, and as Lisa was noting, there's links that have to be updated, there's more content that gets backed up. That's just mechanics. You know, you really want to look at the policy changes. I think you called those out effectively, and we were able to make updates so that they provide the kind of information we need.
I wanted to point out that the high school handbook also added the equity, diversity, anti-racism policy or resolution
Yeah.
to their handbook. I don't know if we want to add those to all of them, but it's a thought. It just occurred to me as I was opening it up again. And I appreciated the work that the high school did on the dress code. I read the red line. Indigenous is spelled wrong in the elementary school handbook. I'm so sorry. I should have just sent those notes. I just thought of it, and it's not written
That's
down.
okay, put it on public record for the secretaries, they're going to love you, Lisa. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I know you have a number of things, but I think if you just send them directly
Yeah.
to the schools.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's
updated
considered a
links.
draft, and it
Yeah.
says draft until they can do summer work on it.
Yeah, it
And
doesn't
it's
go out till
it's a hard
August.
press for them to get those handbooks to us right at the close of the year, but
Yeah.
the policy updates are most essential. I think you guys have given them a good look, and I welcome that, you know, laser focus is important. And any things you see, the feedback, Andrea will go through them again as well, and you know, they need to be looked at really carefully, so every set of eyes is helpful.
The high school could use the new W.
New W.
The what?
High school still has the old W.
Yeah, that will, yeah.
I did wonder about the process of the handbook. I think that when I was thinking about the process of reviewing handbooks at a particular time, one time throughout the year, I think it happened, when I think about the process, it happened because handbooks were physical prior to them being online and interactive, which means their ability to, you know, fix something very quickly now is possible.
Right.
It makes me wonder if we should be doing, you know, little updates along the way where if someone sees something, they say something, and then, you know, it's something so small that it just gets fixed. Or is that just too many edits?
Well, it depends upon what's going on. In other words, once the yearbooks are issued, the handbooks are issued, okay, the parent isn't going to look for anything
Right.
else. But on the other hand, let's say whenever you have a change in the handbook, there isn't any reason why you shouldn't bring it forward because, you know, it can be updated for the next issue, right, on the fly. So, you know, it's like anything else. When
we
you
do
create a
also-
draft, you put it in the bin and then you change the draft as you need to until it's time to issue.
But they also sign off at the beginning of the year, so you
Yeah,
can't
and
really
it is-
change something that
yeah,
someone
you
signed off
can't.
on.
Especially around
The
policies.
sign-off.
You can't update policies, you should not,
We
because
should not.
a parent signs off, and if we get into, that is the discipline handbook, if you want to put another name on it, okay? So when a student has a violation of policy and we enact discipline, the handbook is the reference of guideline and the expectation that parents and students have read it.
It
So
becomes a legal document.
it is a legal document, and that's why you look at it, and it is one that can be your friend and should be. And so I think once a year is what's appropriate. Anything we notice, if there's a spelling error or something like that, that's different. But we usually don't even update all the staffing except for once a year, as it's a public record of kind of the year you had been in.
And are they translated? That was my other question about the handbooks.
On the line, I
Online.
believe so, but I can check.
I-
I echo Lisa's sentiment on equity. That portion, I would impress upon, should be there in all handbooks.
The resolution?
Well, they have a section on,
The equity, diversity, and anti-racism that Westborough High School has,
It's redlined right now.
it's red.
Yeah, it's, yes, that's the resolution you voted,
Right.
and so,
That should be in in all other schools that are.
okay. Yeah, definitely. Can we just make sure it's in the minutes? And then Andrea will take the minutes, and she takes the feedback, and then she talks to the assistants to make sure that they go ahead and make those changes. So the action requested would be that the voted resolution for anti-racist, anti-bias practices that was voted by school committee would go into all handbooks. And then to also make a notation that I believe that we ensure that they are translated, and not all links translate, but the core content does, and it is shared in such a language so that they can review it and sign off, I believe, but I'll confirm.
I think all schools have some printed copies as well in case someone
Yes.
can't access it.
Yep.
So that's always happening as well.
Yes. I'm just making sure Brian's not texting me, which happens sometimes. Now that I have Daniel here to.
Well, thank you for talking through that process.
Yeah.
Because I was
Yeah,
thinking
sure.
about it, and you're right, legal document, it's signed off at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, it's important. Yep.
Okay.
So to make them legal, we have to vote on them. So is there a motion to approve the handbooks?
I move the motion to
Go ahead.
approve the
I'll second.
Thank you, and Steve second. Any other discussion on the student handbooks for 2021-2022 school year? All in favor? Okay, so the student handbooks are approved, and we understand that last-minute changes will happen, not to policy, but to details on staffing
definitely.
and updating links to all the external documents.
And I think that we've made good progress on, getting them more cohesive, adding them, looking at the policy frameworks. But they also, there's a range of them that still require some thoughtful work and detail. So Daniel and I have discussed just following it up with the principals, but also bringing in the assistants who work on them and making sure that we have a cohesive meeting to discuss it.
Next on our agenda is vote to approve the stipend list for the 2021-2022 school year. And we have included now the full approved stipend list. And just as a reminder, that stipends are only paid after verification that the club ran, that the staff completed, the anticipated events, that attendance rosters were complete, that all of that. So this is something that gets paid at the end of the school year.
Attach the full length of
Yeah, all the-
current clubs. And again, there will be a portion of them that don't run, because students didn't sign up, and then there's other ones that will be pop-up for the year. So, I think it speaks to the vibrancy of the experience. But as I said, we made a note that next year we'll do a review with some targeted pieces that I'll kind of bring to you before I start to pull that together, to take a look at trends and overall cost changes and some of the procedural pieces. Because then if we wanted to do some additional recommendations for structure, different things, I would have a memo voted by you to do that.
So I think I had suggested last time that maybe a school committee member, like, it's not an official committee that we have, but since it's so much money, maybe a school committee member would be invited to that meeting or that set of meetings, especially if you're, doing more changes. Because I think that's what we've done in the past. And then I had gone to a few meetings, and I think we kind of fell off that system, but maybe.
I think that's a good idea.
Are you volunteering, Sarah?
Oh, I don't mind, I could do it.
And I don't mind doing it if you don't
I
mind.
mean, it doesn't have to be a subcommittee, but just when that process starts to happen, just. loop all of
Yeah,
us
I
in.
mean,
I imagine it probably wouldn't be till like next spring at this point.
So, yeah, I mean, it depends on how much work we're doing. It depends, some years it meets more, some years it meets less. It depends on what we need to accomplish. And then, typically we'll also confirm pieces by email and then come together and do what we need to do. So, I'm fine with any of that. I mean, again, we shifted the practice in the sense that I moved towards bringing you the formal vote here, so you were seeing all of it. I'm fine, I believe they'd be fine having someone sit in on the committee as well. It's just people have to make themselves available to, we tend to meet end of day, like that type of stuff. So it's just a piece to think about, but yes.
Right, and if it's done by email too, that's probably just as fine also,
Yeah.
just to loop someone in.
Yeah, that'd be great. All right, is there a motion to approve the stipend list for the 2021-2022 school year?
So move.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
No? Any further discussion on that?
I just want to thank you for giving us the full list. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, thank you.
All in favor? 0 in favor, so those are approved. When I look at that full list, I just think like, wow, we have a lot of involvement, like we offer a lot for our students. And I also look at all of the staff and other people who come in to run, like to be a coach or something like that. And we have so many adults that are able to work with students in a non-academic setting, meaning like when I think about the priority we're placing on social and emotional learning and positive relationships between staff and students are a key to success in schools. This is another example of how that's being fostered with clubs and sports and things like that, fine arts, and it makes me feel great to think about that layer that's happening in our school system.
Yeah,
Nice
they're
to see a
busy.
big list, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's for me, it's an investment worth every penny.
It is exciting. I mean, I've read through this list a few times now, and I'm just thinking, it's a wow. It's a wow, because it sort of says exactly what you're talking about, which is we have adults in our buildings who want to do something else with our students, and it gives our students an opportunity to find out what they're passionate about.
Yeah. Or to shine in other areas that they don't between the normal hours that school is running, so, yeah, we're lucky.
The other thing it indicates is that the kids step up to create the things that they want to do. I mean, look at the list.
Yeah.
Look
Yeah.
at Andrew there.
Yeah, a good number of them are invented by students to follow interests and to experience the leadership of organizing a club. And so, yeah, it's all good stuff. And I think that it's a healthy balance of stability and then responsive, organic availability. And there's a tension in that when we're running programs like this, where we need structure for the payment, the requirements, and the design. And the committee that runs it puts in a tremendous amount of time to keep this all very current and updated and vibrant. And they're interacting with the teachers and the students around who signed up for what and what's going on. While we also want it to be organic, that if like Andrew dreams up a club with a group of people, they can find an adult who will, sponsor them and dive in and explore it. So it's exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, education in my sense is not just history, science, math.
Right.
It's all of these. So it's money worth spent.
Yeah, yeah.
I just want to say, I feel extremely lucky to go to Westborough because I know a lot of other towns, they have clubs, but what makes Westborough special is the teachers really let the students take charge and run the clubs. A lot of clubs are like from other towns, from people I know, I've heard that it's really like the teachers just controlling everything. And in Westborough, the students get to be put in a leadership position and be able to do things that other students might not be able to. So I just feel extremely lucky to be in Westborough.
Your job, the president of National Honor Society, is a huge job because, I mean, he's orchestrating and reviewing everyone's hours and volunteer work, and it's really, it is a leadership role, I agree, and thank you for stepping up into that position because
And I think
great stuff.
and I think to Andrew's point, and a discussion we had when we talked about it before, the adult mentorship of clubs is different than this sense of them kind of dominating the organization. And so, I think what they do is they keep a student from feeling like they're in it alone during times of pressure. And they're there as a resource and a consult. And behind the scenes, they also keep track of things that need to happen while they give that freedom for students to make mistakes and to feel what it's like when you don't organize a meeting and your people don't show up and you didn't get them signed up. And so there's a tension because if that happens too much, the superintendent calls and says, get your club under control. So, there's that balance too, but it's all very healthy in a way that I'm immensely proud of because they're out and so many of them are community service oriented and do some pretty great stuff. So it's very fun.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you for the vote. There's some good stuff in there. We will welcome all clubs to be paid next year, and that will give me the opportunity to look at a proposal with you along with that study and that memo, and I think there's good things ahead.
Sure,
Thank you.
Next on our agenda is the Assabet Valley Cooperative Fourth Quarterly Update.
Yeah, so this is an interesting, update in the sense that it's somewhat non-existent, but it is an important part of the record to make sure that some of them are just verbal. Usually I have something to give you tangibly. The framework of this update is just to give you a sense that at AVC at our last board meeting, because I will be chairing that probably next year, by the way, for the next 2 years. I'm vice chair now, so they rotate in, so I'll be running the board next year. Tuition rates and fees are being tabled. We tabled them until we could get more concrete data from Kathy Cummings, the director, and so they're looking at a variety of the rates, waiting to see what happens with some of the stuff that's still going on right now in budget development. So we tabled them. We probably won't vote them till our end of June meeting, and then they'll forward them to us. I don't think there's any drama related to that. They just want the percentage to be accurate against what is the most appropriate charge. Most organizations that we send students to and are members of are all upcharging a fair amount because they all suffered. So AVC will certainly be better than others, but I think they're trying to figure out the just right amount to press on in terms of their percentage increase for those things. I anticipate it will be reasonable, and it'll come to us, and I'll provide it in probably the August update. Their treasurer also was injured in a car accident biking. He was biking and was hit by a car, I believe. So he was out, and so they're also struggling to put someone in place. So we just tabled everything, gave them some space, and we anticipate that update to come forward soon. So that's the update for ABC as of our fourth quarter report.
Thank you. Yep. Question?
Sorry, I just had this, we were talking about Irene before, I had this one realization of what I was missing from this meeting, and I know Irene's retiring, but we usually do acknowledge like everyone else in the district that's retiring, typically at the end of the year meeting, or we have the retirement ceremony that we've now missed for 2 years. I know there's a bunch of people that retired last year, so I just wanted to take a quick moment to acknowledge Irene and also everyone else that's retiring this year, and thank them for their service to
Yes,
our
thank you.
district.
The milestone ceremony, actually next week, Daniel and I are delivering, they're all in my office right now, all of the gifts for the 10 years, the 20 years, the retirements, and we have them all wrapped with their names. And so typically we do that at a recognition ceremony. So we're going to take kind of 2 days and drive them around and personally hand them to people and thank them. So we'll be doing that, and we all look forward to a return next year towards that important ceremony. We will also do the fall kind of meet and greet that we do for people receiving PTS, professional teacher status. So that will return in the fall as well, hopefully if everything continues to go well. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you, Sarah.
Okay, sorry, I just
No,
thought
that's,
Yeah.
that's great. So now we're on the last agenda item, the superintendent's evaluation. And as a reminder, the school committee conducts a review of our superintendent each year. And the superintendent's review is based on the Massachusetts Model System for Educator Evaluation, specific to the superintendent and the performance levels outlined in the model rubrics there. The school committee reviews Amber on her own goals that she sets at the beginning of the school year and on 4 standards outlined by the state: instructional leadership, management and operations, family and community engagement, and professional culture. And Amber writes her goals aligned with each one of those standards, so it makes it a little easier to do the evaluation that way. The rating system includes the categories of exemplary, proficient, needs improvement / developing, or unsatisfactory. Some of the data we use to complete this evaluation include our own observations and work with the superintendent, Amber's self-evaluation of her goals, which she shared at the last school committee meeting, recent staff survey that was sent out to staff, and we had a pretty good response rate for that. We had parent and student emails and feedback we received all year. There were district surveys from the school year on reopening plans, on race and equity. And there were 2 question and answer forums that the superintendent held on Westborough TV, and those also provided some data for us. So I compiled the committee's individual ratings and comments into one evaluation document, which I shared with the superintendent just before this meeting, and I will summarize the performance ratings. This year, because we knew we were going into a very unusual year, Amber had created for herself an overarching goal related to the COVID-19 crisis and anticipated issues the district would face this year. And so we decided to go ahead and just evaluate her on that as well. So for the overarching goal related to the COVID-19 crisis, the superintendent received a performance rating of exemplary. For Standard 1, Instructional Leadership, the superintendent received a performance rating of proficient. For Standard 2, Management and Operations, the superintendent received a performance rating of exemplary. For Standard 3, Family and Community Engagement, the superintendent received a performance rating of proficient. For Standard 4, Professional Culture, the superintendent received a performance rating of proficient, and this evaluation led to an overall rating of exemplary. Some areas of strength mentioned in the evaluation were your commitment to stay in relationship with stakeholders while navigating various sets of data and a wide range of feelings and opinions on how the schools should be operating this year. Frequent consultation with town leadership, advisory finance committee, and the Board of Health, I think really led to stronger relationships as a town leadership group. There was mention of strong work with management and operations, that you know how important it is to keep school facilities up to date and well-maintained. And this also includes careful budget work, and again, working and staying in relationship with other stakeholders, committees, and departments. Your contributions to the committees that you serve on in the community, so the Climate Action Plan, Master Plan Committee, Westborough Connects, strong partnerships with Youth and Family Services and Westborough TV, among others, and leading the district's commitment to anti-racism and the work that took place this year in that area. And I also know that you received a lot of feedback during the past year, and much of it based on what was not working for students and families and staff. And I know you are well aware of growth areas, but I'll mention two that seem to be a common theme in the evaluation. And one was around communication. So parents and staff mentioned frustration regarding district communication this year. It either came too late, was too vague, not enough transparency. And I think every year communication is something to be improved. And the second is along the theme of rebuilding positive relationships with some faculty and families. And I think you've already mentioned that this will be a focus for you moving forward next year. So my personal comment is that I can't imagine navigating this past year without you, Amber, and your strong leadership and your management skills. I'm grateful for your commitment to the students of Westborough Public Schools, to their families, and your commitment to leading all of our district leaders, faculty, and employees to the very best of your ability each day. So I will open it up for other comments from school committee members.
Oh, I like to go first. Go ahead. I'm ready. I had to write it down, so I'll just read through it. Overall, I found your work for the school year to be proficient. While other initiatives made progress, managing COVID impacts really took the most of your time and energy this year. I feel you continually showed respect and balance in weighing opinions and feedback from all stakeholders. I appreciate that you stayed true to your leadership style. You're confident, steady, and thoughtful with your decisions and communication. In reflecting on the year, I did and still agree with the pace and thoroughness of the decisions being made, a careful return of students to our buildings throughout the year, and finally all students later in the spring allowed for planning, both mental and physical, and ultimately provided a safe environment for all. You've proven time and time again, you have the knowledge, skills, and abilities needed for effective leadership, and this year of above and beyond circumstances was no exception. As you always do, I agree, give credit to Daniel, Irene, and the leadership team, faculty, and all the support staff for their combined efforts to provide a meaningful learning experience for our Westborough students every day. Moving on from this school year, looking forward to future planning with the long-range strategic plan, as well as the recovery work for students in the coming year. I'd like to see the grant money put towards staffing that could allow for smaller class sizes and teaching models that would provide individualized instruction as we can allow, as well as making sure the guidance department and the school-based counselors have planning and training time and the resources that they need to respond to the SEL needs of our students in the fall. And over the summer, as you and the leadership team reflect on this school year, look to carry forward the creativity, the adaptations, the innovations that worked well for students this year, including those that it happened in the fully remote program. I know a lot of parents were and students were satisfied with that program, and there was a variety of reasons why. So it would be good to look at that and understand those perspectives. And I also really like seeing a lot of the more students, Kevin, you can probably attest to this, outside. So hopefully we can continue that into the fall too, before it gets too cold out. I don't think this was a lost year for anyone. The resilience and tenacity of our students was evident. There were countless unique learning moments happening all the time, and that I believe our students will carry those far into the future. So thank you.
I would agree. There were definitely some good practices, and it would be great to think about carrying a lot of them forward into next year. And like you said, I did love driving by the high school and seeing so many
they're
kids
all outside.
and I'm sure just having that break to get some fresh air is really good for you. Regu,
Yeah,
do you
they
have
all like
anything?
it, yeah.
Yeah, I haven't written down anything I should have written down. So I'll try to summarize. My ORA rating was exemplary. Based on the difficult circumstance with which we were in last year, I could not see any other way we would have done it without you. You did pull us through those difficult times. Some of the decisions were really difficult to make, and you did make it, and you were, prudent to bring everybody together, understand the circumstances, and make a decision that catered to the whole sum rather than some parts. So when you do that, sometimes the solution will not satisfy anybody, rather than it partially satisfies everybody. But we still had to do that, and your leadership proved that that was the right thing to do. Having said that, there are a few items that that really I would provide as feedback. One is around communication. There was a lack of communication sometimes during the process, which led to people talking amongst themselves and coming up with their own interpretations of what it all meant, which could have been avoided. There's no such thing in my mind as over-communicating. You can always overdo communication piece of it. That's one piece that I found needs some improvement. The second piece that I thought sometimes we, meaning we are part of your team, we do cater to the screamers a lot. We shouldn't. We should always keep the overall arching, the whole community interests in mind, and not just cater to those who scream out loud. If they're wrong. If they're wrong, they're wrong, and so be it. So sometimes I felt we are bending over backwards a bit too much for those screamers, irrespective of whether we felt they were wrong or right. So I think we should not do that at the end. We should always keep our focus on the overall community interests, and if screamers, let be.
I found this evaluation more difficult than the last four that I've written. I found it difficult because I felt like the standards of the state do not correlate with the COVID pandemic. There was no standard for safety. Even though safety is always a bottom line and always in the foundation of keeping everyone safe, it really was a different element this year that did not exist in the standards from the state. So as I was evaluating this year and thought about what was the most important thing that our superintendent did, she kept our staff, faculty, and students safe. She was the first superintendent to be purchasing PPE. She was visionary when it came to making sure that we were ready to open when we opened, whether we opened in hybrid, whether we opened in full in. She was keeping people safe even with the remote-only program. And when I think about those aspects, I think if I could just rate upon that standard, it would have been very, very easy. But I think when I look at each piece and break it apart, overall, it's still an extraordinary job that you had that took countless more hours than usual and required leadership stronger than usual, you know. So I saw you collaborating in ways that you used to do, but it became more important. When it came to everything from collaborating with the leadership team, labor management team, staff, faculty, it really became much more important. And I think that your skills did rise in those areas because you were really in management and operations was really right underneath, you know, when I think that standard, that safety should have been a separate standard. And it was a pretty challenging year. So the fact that, you know, we could wake up one day and decide that you are human, that you would have some weaknesses, you know, was okay. That it was okay for whether it was communication that wasn't always prime, and, you know, I can understand why aspects happened. You only have 24 hours in a day, and you often were working in that 24/7 kind of capacity this year. So your humanness is okay to, for me as someone who's evaluating, to say, okay, so communication at times, and I didn't think it was all the time. I thought it was just certain times. And there may have been a negative lasting impact on those times. I will admit that that is very possible, and likely what happened was that when communication was less, it seemed to have a greater impact during COVID impact times. So overall for me, yeah, I had a couple proficient, I had a couple, you know, exemplary, but I am someone who believes that I am so proud that you are our superintendent and that it was you who stood tall during this period of time, and I can't imagine that we would be as successful as we've been without you having been at the helm. So thank you for doing all that you did. And I do recognize that you were working. I mean, I know that a year ago when I did an evaluation, and 2 years ago and 3 years ago, that I'm someone who sees you working 24/7. But this year was different. The intensity of the 24/7 was so much greater. And I recognize you'll probably tell me, but that was also my staff. Yes. And I thank our teachers for having gone above and beyond this year in a way that they've never had to do before or felt they could do before, but they did it anyway. And I think about the same thing about our leadership team, that there was someone overseeing the leadership team as well, who are also working at a capacity that was greater than any other year. So thank you for putting in your due diligence this year in a way that I can't believe that we ever even had to ask for it to happen. But you did a great job, and for those who say, you know, I personally, one school committee member, misinterpreted how this year went. I do not evaluate based upon one day of a school year. I evaluate based on an entire year. And it starts July 1st, and then it's June 30th, and we look at the whole year, and we pick it apart piece by piece, and then we write an evaluation. So thank you. You did an extraordinary job, and I'm proud to sit here on the school committee and be able to say exemplary. Thanks.
I'll start with that. My evaluation was exemplary in all categories, and the reason why is your performance. I'm a realist. I understand how hard it was to do this year based on nothing that was normal went away. Everything that was normal had to be done. And in fact, everything that was normal was running a $55 million business to the satisfaction of 20,000 people and their kids in this town. In the middle of what is probably going to be marked down, at least in this century, as the worst conditions that the country had to deal with, and they had to deal with it on a moment's notice. And the secret, I think, to our, I believe, very good performance this year is the fact that we were prepared, and we were prepared because of the programs that you had in place for previous years, such as, you know, the program we had for snow days, which could very easily be converted to what we did as part of the hybrid system. You know, we could go on and talk about the performance that you individually had at each level, but when you aggregate the effort that had to be done to be successful this year, as well as running the normal business in dealing with all the employees of the school system, approximately 750, with very intelligent teachers and staff who have their own opinions about life, who all have to work together under edicts that aren't, as we discussed earlier, not necessarily common sense, not necessarily what anybody wanted to do, and the need to find resources that would answer the question to protect the kids and also the rest of the staff. And so, as a realist, I don't know how you could evaluate your performance any less than exemplary, because here we are at the end of the year with students pretty much moving forward in their life. Granted, it was a different story for this year and different for last year. It certainly was different in terms of the standard things that kids do as they get to the point where they graduate. But I think they may very well be stronger as a result of what they had to live through. And certainly, we as the school committee and you as our superintendent, I think we can be proud of what was done for this town and for the people in it and for the kids in the school system. And rather than, I guess, come up with a whole bunch of other sentences and words, I'm very pleased to have been able to provide the evaluation I did, recognizing how tough it was to do the job you had to do and then do the job you had to do again in order to perform under all these criteria. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I think your feedback is exceptionally kind. It's also very specific. Like, I read the review, you know, this evening before the meeting, and I feel like there's some really good areas of focus in there and areas where, you know, you've targeted where I can, you know, focus next year on improving, which I think we always are working on doing. I do commend the faculty and the leadership team as the core that made the sustainability of an incredibly hard year possible. And I appreciate the comments that we did that while also running all regular operations of a very large organization. And I don't think many people do stop and think that we're close to a $60 million organization with 700 plus employees and a pretty busy, frenetic organization. And, you know, we run it and make it look pretty easy. And I think the team is pretty amazing. There's no doubt that this year was painful and complicated and, you know, hard for everyone, myself included. You know, I think the dichotomy in this crisis was that we were all trapped in it while also surviving it with everyone. You know, there was this, we needed to manage it, you needed to manage it, while we were also suffering the same things that people were pushing on us about. So I found that like one of the most fascinating experiences to have as a leader, that, you know, we would be getting emails about things people were unhappy about and we were kind of suffering them too. So it was a really and it's nice to use a little bit of past tense. We need to close out this year. I don't think I've spoken to one faculty member that I've run into this week that doesn't just say, I can hardly wait for the end of the year, just to be able to kind of put a wrap on this and step back and regroup. So I do think we weathered some very hard times. I think that the focus on relationship work is an area that will be huge for us next year for everyone. And that's not just for me, that's for all of us. It's for the people that also need to step back and think about how they handled the year and what repair they might need to bring to the relationships as well. And I think that there's good work ahead. I think your notes around the strategic plan and gearing up on our anti-bias, anti-racist, equity-based practices are things that people are excited about. So, all of that will fold into, I think, we all hope a good fall start to things with some normalcy. And during that, we were building fails and, all the typical things that go on around here, which are do require a good amount of hours. And I think from that standpoint, I've never actually backed into not enough hours in the day, and that happened to me for the first time in my career. Like, you always say when people work hard, I mean, you're all hard workers, you all are very professional, hardworking people. I have never in my life, in a career, actually backed into not enough hours. And that was a true experience of literally not having time to organize the meetings and the moments and the things we had to in order to actually get all the decisions rolled out. And I do think that suffered some of the pieces with regard to communication, and I'm hoping that those will, come back to rights. I also think that there's things we learned about communication, about things people like about it, and if it's sustainable for us, could be something that we really embrace and try to do some new things with, which I think is exciting. But I would be the first to say it was certainly the most challenging year I've ever had, and I also want to note it wasn't a year, it was a year and a half. So we have been working steadily 24/7 for a year and a half. And, it has been exhausting. And I don't think it's, particularly attractive when people mention in their leadership work that they're exhausted, but it was very challenging. And I say that out of honor for the team, not just myself, but they have worked incredibly hard and, gave up family time and lifetime and weekend and evenings and whatever it took to run this district for people. And I don't care what anybody thinks about what we should have done differently, but when we came into this, we said we wanted to feel good about how we did. And I feel incredibly well about how we managed this. And I think I would put us next to anyone for the way Westborough came through this. And so that doesn't mean we didn't make mistakes. That doesn't mean we don't have regrets. It doesn't mean that there's anything in my evaluation that isn't accurate or true around areas where I, need to refine and improve my practice. But this school district did very well. So I appreciate the feedback, and I'm also super excited to end the year. I am really going to, step back and try to take a week and a half off, which I've never done. So I'm going to actually take a little time. And I'm really looking forward to actually maybe not working during that time. So that's exciting. So thank you. I think that certainly the leadership team wants me to tell you how appreciative they are of the hard work that you put in, because it was as difficult for you as certainly it was for us to have people unhappy and stressed and overwhelmed, and to feel the responsibility of having to manage all those decisions. And as Raghu said, there was just no good way to come out on some of them. And so you had to weather that, and I know it was stressful. I also know it's stressful for you to mark me exemplary when you know that there are people that are very unhappy with my year. So I appreciate your honor of recognizing my performance, given that I know that that would be your last meeting, would be stressful to have your name attached to that delineation, and I hope that you feel comfortable with it, because it doesn't just represent me, it represents the district, and so thank you. And I look forward to actually coming back to work, so next year is going to be exciting. People are pretty excited to get back to normalcy, so thank you.
We stand by our evaluation of you, and as we have stood by every decision we've made collaboratively this whole year. So from the August 17th decision we had to make to open school, when a lot of people did not want us to, I knew it was the right thing to do. We stood by the decision, took all the feedback, and kept moving forward. And I think that that's, a credit to the relationship that we've built together so that we can have a good working relationship, push and pull on each other as needed, and make the decisions that are the best decisions for our students, because that's what it's all about.
You guys have done a great job.
Thanks.
Yeah.
So the next meeting of the school committee will actually be on Monday, August 30th at 6 p.m. Unless we convene a meeting during the summer, in which case the meeting date, time, and location would be posted and shared with the community, as we always do with all our meetings. But if you don't hear from us, that's because we're off working on different committees and projects and taking a little bit of a break, and we will be back on Monday, August 30th at 6 p.m. And that is the Monday before school begins, and that's what we always traditionally meet at that time, just to kind of see if there's any last-minute decisions, policy updates to make before the buildings open. I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Steve?
Before we do, to the extent that we might need a special meeting, and as long as it's still legal, I would suggest we consider Zoom, because who knows where we'll be when you need it.
Yeah,
I think the state's going to act on that, so
Yeah.
if it is viable, we should, and if it's
Yeah.
not, we'll have to
I
convene.
thought they were continuing it through next September or something, so
Yeah.
we'll figure it out. But yes, if we have to do that, even if some of us have to join via Zoom and the rest of us can be in a room, I think that.
Yeah,
Yeah, well, I mean, now you could do it by phone. In other words, if you go back to the old rules, you
Oh,
could
you
do it.
call in,
But you
yeah.
got to have a quorum here.
Yep.
And what I'm suggesting, if the rules
Yeah.
are still the same, you can have a quorum via.
yeah,
via
definitely.
Zoom. So,
Yeah.
good, I'll move that we adjourn.
Yeah, I'll second. Thank you, Lisa. All in favor to adjourn?
Aye.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks
Everyone
so
have a
much.
good summer.
Enjoy.
Enjoy summer. It's
Yep.
coming. Don't even need an executive session.